a microburst or it was a tornado between Highway 176 and 276 on the South Carolina side of that ridge, in there behind Line Runner Ridge, right back in that section. There's a stand of timber down that stretches. It looks like somebody took a giant steamroller and just mashed it. There's one of those that exists there. There's another one that exists, and it looks like you're building an interstate. Just every tree. I mean, not just some trees. Every single tree flattened. And so hard to imagine. The trees were so bad that there was a time between the floodwater and the trees that you could not get to Brevard from the studio.
Brother Stephen was talking about that yesterday. You couldn't.
You could not get to the hospital from here. You could not leave Transylvania County because either trees or floodwaters. We were completely on an island, and we were completely blocked in. And this continued for days, okay, because the floodwaters came up in the Mills River area, completely cutting us off. And so there was no way out other than by helicopter or airplane.
So I was there. I was on my way here to see what you needed. And we got to, where the airport, the end of the runway comes up to 280. From there, as far as the eye could see, it looked like Lake Mills River.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was no passage.
No, not at all. You couldn't cross it anywhere.
That was on day one.
Yeah, you couldn't cross it. Mills River came out and closed that section. You couldn't get through. I finally got a path in the middle of the night, Saturday night, going under power lines and under trees. I was able to work my way around and get to Hendersonville, doing some assessment. But I tried a number of ways. You could not go from Brevard to Hendersonville. That was impassable. You could not go to Brevard to Asheville. That was impassable. 64 was completely flooded. You could not bring a fire truck, an ambulance, any type of high-profile vehicle. I drive an SUV, the four-wheel drive. I was in the ditch on the bank. I was actually had limbs brushing the vehicle, trying to find a path to get out, trying to get some help in.
Well, it was every kind of problem you could think of, from trees down to power lines, like spaghetti noodles, power lines everywhere. Trees down, root balls in the road, mudslides, dirt piles, rocks. And when that wasn't the case, the road was just ripped up. And when that wasn't the case, you had all of that mixed together. And it was pandemonium for days.
Well, we stayed in, according to FEMA, we stayed in 911 mode for 35 days.
Correct.
And they are just now, they're saying that they're almost complete with the assessment of the storm.
Wow. It took a little longer than they thought. They said 350 days. It's been 364, and they're not done yet.
They're not finished. But they're just now still trying to assess the damage that the storm caused a year later. Those are their words. And they also said that they expect it to take a full 10 years to try to recover and rebuild the damage that took place.
3,500 days.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
So let's take it one at a time, and let's just look at some statistics. Hurricane Helene, the reason we title it the Appalachian Apocalypse, that storm caused the most geological damage from a meteorological event to ever occur in the United States of America in recorded history. And to prove that, the United States Geological Survey recorded 1,973 landslides. And Brother Coates, the gorge counts as one. The gorge counts as one.
Yeah, and they keep happening there. So that's what's funny about that. When you talk about the gorge, it just keeps happening and keeps happening. And they're fixing to dynamite the gorge because we can't haul in enough material to fix it.
Well, and that creates secondary problems because those mountains are so unstable already. We have rock slides. How many times has it been closed from rock slides? So
2 so far.
Yeah.
And when you talk about those landslides, my hometown Swananoa. So if you're anywhere on the main thoroughfare in the Swananoa Valley, if you're on Highway 70 and you look at it's a valley, you look on the mountains on either side, you call them scars.
Yeah.
That's the landslide. When you look at a mountain and see a gash where it looks like a power crew has come and started to make a pathway over the mountain, and it's just brown, and now it's greened up a little bit. That is a Helene scar.
Sure it is.
I don't know what we call them, but that's what it is.
Well, it now documented 1,973 landslides, and so that's a record. And so the geological damage done to western North Carolina was unprecedented. It was the worst geological event as far as landslides. Whole roads sliding away, houses sliding away, the whole sides of mountains coming in. So imagine this. In Swannanoa, for instance, Brother Coates, people were given the order to seek higher ground, an emergency, a flood emergency. Abandon your home, seek higher ground. Well, here's a couple of things. Here's a couple of issues with that. Trees were falling everywhere.
Yeah.
And so if you went to the woods, you'd get killed by a tree. The whole sides of mountains were sliding off. So if you went to the mountain, you might get killed in a landslide. The bridges by that time were underwater. There was no escape route. The rain was unbelievable, and people were told to go out in the rain and get out of your house and find higher ground.
And we sustained 25 to 30 inches of rain. So it wasn't just a few minutes of hard rain. It was a day and a half of hard rain.
Yes. Well, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about the water. The town of Bussock, which is
Near Mount Mitchell.
Near Mount Mitchell.
That's Yancey.
Received 31.33 inches.
Can't even use.
The
Pastor, that's like, you say that, and it's like, I can't even. I know what. In one day, if we get 3 inches here at the station,
Right.
Brother Martin, we're sloshing in the mud for a couple of days if we get 3 inches.
Well, imagine this. The rainfall was waist deep on me.
Right.
If I was standing in the rain gauge,
Yeah.
I wear 30 inseam pants. It was waist deep.
Right.
That's the amount of rainfall. That's not the floodwater. The rain gauge
Yeah.
had that much in it. Yeah. Now, imagine this. Mount Mitchell had over 2 feet. Bussock got 31.33. It's just below Mount Mitchell. It is the largest flood in human history for the mountains. We got 2 feet higher. The floodwaters were 2 feet higher than the all-time record set in 1916. According to sources who studied this, I think it was a college professor, a meteorologist, they estimate that 40 trillion gallons of water
40 trillion.
fell on North Carolina.
Wow.
Or possibly that was a total storm load, 40 trillion gallons. If you were to if North Carolina was level from Murphy to Manteo, and you were to apply 40 trillion gallons of water, the water would be 3.5 feet deep statewide. Now, obviously, It didn't all fall here, but my point is, it would cover from the coast to the mountains. The whole state would be 3.5 feet deep. So, if you can imagine that, that's what I'm talking about. There were according to sources, over 200 water rescues were performed in western North Carolina. And I think that number's skewed because I think there were that many in Buncombe County. One of the swiftwater rescue teams, we had them here from all over the state and then all over the eastern United States. We housed one of them here. One of the rescue teams said it was an all-time first for them. They rescued a woman out of a house. And I said, what's an all-time first about that? They said, while it was going down the Swannanoa River, they took boats. They saw it go by, the woman screaming. They took boats. They caught the house, and the rescuers went into the house, rescued the woman, and brought her out before the house broke apart. First time in history they said that's ever happened. They've never rescued anyone that survived out of a moving house. And the floodwaters are estimated to be over 70 miles an hour. Now, how do you do that? I mean, of course, they had the current with them, but they actually caught it and rescued the woman, and she survived.
The data has been so hard to track down. I go to an agency or I call a 1-800 number or look it up on the internet. And it's funny when the internet says there is no data about this. When you look something up because of a story that a listener said, you won't believe what happened here, and you look that up to try to find some information on it, it doesn't exist because we do everything digitally now. Everything's online. All the Amazon cameras were down. The Blink cameras, they were all down.
Right.
All of the anything electronic, we went 40 years backwards.
This is why I
Correct?
say, this is why I say, we will never know the full extent of the storm because the evidence was not documented and because there was no way to confirm it, to relay it. And so, and I am very concerned, even for this weekend. They are changing our forecast as we're speaking.
Right.
And we may have some tropical influence.
Me and my wife are supposed to be at the Outer Banks next week, and
well,
that ain't going to happen.
There's reason to believe now that we may have some rain. Nothing to the extent, obviously, of Helene, but every time it rains, it triggers people's PTSD who were in the storm. So the worst geological event caused by a meteorological event in history. The highest wind in history with 106 mile an hour plus 8 tornadoes, the largest tree damage in history. How about this one? The most extensive power outage in the history of electricity, which goes back into the 30s and 40s. There's never been a power outage like the anniversary. I like on this anniversary, there's never been a power outage like the Appalachian Apocalypse. According to sources that we've been searching, they estimate that over 1 million customers were without power as a result of this storm. Over 370 substations were either damaged, underwater, or completely destroyed.
So if one gets underwater, does that ruin a substation? If it gets underwater, does it have to be? How does that work? I mean,
if it shorts it out, if they didn't get it cut off ahead of time, yeah. And those big transformers have to be set with cranes. They're sealed, and so water does not necessarily get in them. But if they don't kill the power before it gets to that level, they have to kill the power to them. Then once the water gets up to the leads on the top of them, they'll blow, and it takes forever to get them replaced. In the blizzard of '93, the National Guard brought one in that had all of the city of Asheville out. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And we actually helped escort that truck up the mountain, and people were cheering like a parade as it came into town because it took. We'd already been down for what, a week, almost all of Asheville, because of a big transformer exploded during that storm.
So while we're in the middle of heavy drive time for folks out and about listening, when you say that, so I've been doing a lot of news reports lately in our 8:30 news slot about how that everything that's been repaired, a lot of it is temporary repair. See, I didn't realize that.
Yes, sir.
Up until recently, I realized that there are water systems and power systems both, and road systems that have just had temporary repairs to them just to get us moving again.
Yes.
So there have been grants coming down from the federal government to make what's been made temporary permanent. So I guess that's why we have a 10-year block ahead of us, 9 more years of...
How much did the Trump administration release this week?
I remember. Off the top of my head, it was 53 something. So 50
billions, I think.
Well, the 53 million was coming back for just specifically for water infrastructure. I don't know. That's the number that's in my head. So I don't know how many billions it was.
Let me just give you a number. I-40, $2 billion with a B to open 4 lanes of I-40 back. $2 billion, and estimated restoration 2 to 3 years. And again, they don't have enough material to build those lanes back. They're going to have to dynamite the mountains
They're blowing up the mountains.
to refill that. They have taken gunite, which is a spray concrete, and sprayed the walls to stop the 2 existing lanes from falling into the Pigeon River. It is precarious through there. I was just through there last week, and I can't imagine a semi. I can't imagine a set of doubles, and me trying to navigate a set of doubles through there. Can't even think about that because it is tough just with a truck and a trailer. Just, a pickup truck and a trailer. That's tough. We come through with an SUV and a trailer behind it, and man, I tell you, you felt so tight. But what people don't realize is it is a miracle of God that road's open at all.
Well, that's even using, like you said, dynamiting the mountains, and we hate to use those words, but that's what's fixing to happen. And they tried, and I want you to speak to this. They got quotes from bringing in material and labor from out of state where there's an abundance of whatever it takes to put that back, and realized that we were going to save money and time, and I don't understand why it would save time, but money and time to blow up part of the Nantahala Gorge and the Pigeon River Gorge and put it back. And I don't understand that.
Well, I think it's a logistics thing. They've worked for a year. Brother Coates, and if you look at it, they're just above river level right now. Brother Martin was with us last week. We were talking about it. Right. We looked at it. They have worked for a year and have just now got a road established down on the level of the Pigeon River. It's taken that long to get through there.
Right. It's going to be unbelievable what they've got to do just to get the other 2 lanes. And
people lost their lives driving off into the river on the interstate. They just drove across. And then we had one lady who was killed who on the Tennessee side who drove around a barrier and drove off into the river.
It doesn't even look like the same place when you go through there because it's widened so large.
Did we ever figure out where the river went?
Well, it went to the next river and then to the.
But it's gone.
The river is so small now.
It's like a canyon.
Yeah,
that's the wrong way to say it.
That's right.
And everything's changed. The whole ecosystem there's changed. The people were complaining because they had the big trucks in the water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My friend, that's the least of our worries.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That is the absolute least of our worries.
Yeah, I was driving up through Pensacola, and they had the big. Out west, they have these mining dump trucks that they build on site, and you can't transport them. They're too big to go down the interstate, and then they tear them apart and move them.
Right.
And that's what they had going in and out of the river, and there were people pitching a fit about it. They were like, I can't believe you got that thing down in the salamanders. And I'm not being ugly. I'm just saying that has to happen.
Yeah. The habitats are gone.
Yeah.
Right.
The habitats for the salamanders and the moss and the snail darters and the snails and the hellbenders and all of the other, we are, all those habitats are gone.
Right.
And they're not coming back. And the Chimney Rock, that whole stretch that cut down through there, it is a ugly, jagged ditch. And so is the Pigeon River.
They're not even going to fill Lake Lure back up until May of next year. Wow. So that's a year and a half of Lake Lure not being in existence, which is a huge economic impact on Rutherford County.
Oh, yeah.
Enormous.
Well, the roads are not passable. 1 year, they're still, pull it up on the map. The roads are still closed.
Oh, yeah. Right. Several roads.
We have roads closed everywhere. 178 to Saluda is closed. And they're saying it's going to be a while. We have on our traffic maps, we look them up and see these closures, and they're saying 2026, and I saw one the other day, they said 2027 was the opening date of that road.
Wow.
That's something that we can't even think about. And think of this. This is one of the things this is also, it's the largest damage to infrastructure in the history of the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
150 bridges impassable. A total of 400 roads were closed. 3,759 private bridges were washed out. 145 water systems were shut down.
I'm sorry, 3,000, say the private bridges again?
3,759 bridges and culverts were washed out in western North Carolina.
Okay, so I was driving out to preach a couple weeks ago in a community, and I saw that. We were going, I think it was Barnersville. Yeah, it was in Barnersville. And this SUV drove down. This is like, Brother Martin, it's like 3 weeks ago. This SUV drives down into the river. It's between a creek and a river size. Drive down in there, drove across it, and up to down to their house because their private bridge was washed out. They're still gone.
They're fording the creek every day.
And if you don't have a forerunner or something, you're not getting home. And that's still happening. People don't realize that's still happening.
A lot of people don't realize that the railroads were destroyed. Yesterday, one day from the anniversary, the first coal train came through Spruce Pine. Yesterday. The track through Black Mountain and Old Fort Mountain, you can see it from I-40. It's hanging in the midair. That line's still completely closed.
Yeah, and I don't know why they haven't changed that, because the railroad's been on top of everything, and I don't know why they haven't fixed that one.
Well, you know, we had a death from a guy driving a dump truck hauling ballast stone.
Right.
Lost his brakes, and he was killed, and it's a Helene death.
Yeah.
He was killed there at the Old Fort exit.
He got off the exit and drove right onto the roof of the building below him.
I saw it.
I guess if the railroad, tell me if I'm wrong, if the railroad hadn't fixed it in a year, it ain't fixable. That's my guess.
I don't know if they're waiting on funds or what, but see, it also closed. See, the railroad here comes from Tennessee.
Right.
And it comes up and it follows the French Broad River, and it comes into the mountains. Then it goes across and through Black Mountain or Old Fort Mountain, and then down to Marion, and that was the thoroughfare, for the East Coast coming out of Tennessee. Well, engines, all of the rail cars, everything got stuck here in the mountains because there was no way out, and so the Southern Norfolk decided to fix the Tennessee side, and so now we're a spur. So we do have rail service. There was a company in Haywood County. They use, I guess it's magnesium ore, and they bring it in rail cars, and they refine it, and they make Epsom salts, right?
Yes.
They make magnesium that you take, Epsom salts. They had no rail service. They had to start bringing it in on dump trucks and trucking it in. And they were losing money by having to truck it in because it was so intense. I mean, it takes several big trailers full of iron ore or magnesium ore to equal one rail car. And so it crippled a lot of businesses, but the railroad being down. And so it is, a lot of people don't realize how bad that was. And then we have a local line here, the Blue Ridge Railroad, and it used to service the local area. It did the spurs. It ran down to Hendersonville. It ran up to Haywood County, and their tracks were damaged. And of course, they're a subsidiary leased from Norfolk Southern. I don't know how long it'll be before Old Fort Mountain. I do know they're working on it, but I don't know how long it'll be because they're going to have to rebuild. And the problem is that railroad is right beside a creek. And how do you environmentally build back a bank that's straight up from the creek? How you go put that back?
Do you bypass it?
I don't know what you're going to do.
And then you have to buy property, and you have to.
What are you going to do? I don't know what you're going to do. This is the point. We are at such a place, and we're at the 1 year mark. And if you just join us, you're listening to a special anniversary day, the Appalachian Apocalypse, and of 2024, and we're recounting this hour the magnitude of the storm called Helene, the hurricane that came to the mountains but wouldn't leave.
If you go to our Facebook page, you can watch us in the control room throughout the day today, and we'll be having interviews. And then, of course, pinned at the top of Anchor Broadcasting's Facebook is a short video, just a few seconds, of the radar picture as the two storms merged and came through our area. So if you want a quick reminder, I've got a short video posted there, and you can share this. Please, if you're listening online, share the link with somebody and let them know that because we got a lot of folks coming in today.
We do.
And we want to share the story.
Right.
A lot of them traveling a long way to be a part. This story was from the 24th day of October last year, and the state said the damage exceeded $40 billion, and the most expensive ever was $17 billion from Florence in 2018. It was the most damage ever occurring, the most deadly ever occurring. We'll come back to that. Here's some statistics that just reinforce what I'm saying. 92.5% of the homes that were damaged or destroyed did not have flood insurance, nor could they have had, because you can't buy flood insurance if you're not in a flood zone. Homes were not in a flood zone, but they are now.
I can't tell you how many clients we had that came through and said, FEMA won't respond to me. We had a senator stop by here and offer his services. Ted Budd came by, sent one of his representatives by here, offered his services, and he said, if you have somebody fighting FEMA, tell them to reach out to me personally, and I will help them with it. And still yet, people could not get, I mean, even the House of Representatives and the senators that was trying to get us help could not get a response at the time until the administration changed. And thankfully, it's interesting to me, and maybe this is worthy of comment or not, just it's interesting to me how that went for a couple of months, and you didn't see the massive grapple trucks with the trailers. You didn't see the Corps of Engineers in heavy presence. But when the administration changed, it's almost like, I almost feel like he got on the phone the next morning and said, get those trucks to North Carolina right
I think he
now.
did. Absolutely did.
And he didn't say anything. They just showed up.
Right.
On January the 21st, convoys came into Western North Carolina.
So you remember that. A
It's
massive,
documented.
they were everywhere.
So did politics play a part in this? Now, we're not finished at all with the statistics, but yes, it's a documented fact. FEMA representatives were told to not go to houses that had a Trump sticker, a Trump flag, or a Trump sign. It's a fact. It's a documented fact. We were told that. We were making accusations to that end. It was nationally recognized, and people lost their jobs for it. But it did happen. So we were the victims of politics and using politics, the storm for politics. Even to the point, the vice president who was running for president, she came to Western North Carolina, went to a firehouse in Buncombe County, gave out water.
I remember that.
In exchange with handshake. Now, I'm counting on your vote. You would get a case of water. Now, I'm counting on your vote. How is that different from 50 years ago, 75 years ago, when you could get either $5 or a flask of moonshine for your vote here in the county?
Wow.
And it was well known that you could either get $5 or a flask of moonshine, confiscated moonshine, in exchange for your vote. What's the difference with that? What's the difference between that and a third world country?
It just does not need to be forgotten, Pastor. That does not need to be forgotten. And that's...
Well, okay, so I've got a little more...
Probably need to finish your statistics.
And I guess while I'm upset, I need to go ahead and talk about it. Okay.
Get it out.
So we had helicopter crews from all over the United States.
Yeah.
Sightseeing helicopters. And I got a phone call that we were getting a helicopter. It was coming to pick me up at Transylvania Airport, and they were going to take me to do assessments. And so I got there. It's a green and gold helicopter. It's a four-place. It carries 4 people. So we packed the back of it full of Bibles. The pilot is an older gentleman. He has a crew chief in the left seat. I'm sitting behind him, and the seat beside me is full of Bibles and other supplies to go to our forward operating bases. We lifted off with only a half tank of fuel. We lifted off and started down the runway at Transylvania, heading west. The crew chief said, "Abort, abort, abort," in my headset. And we sat down in the turnaround right there at the numbers on the west end. Scared me to death. He said, "We don't have enough lift. It's not going to do it." And so I called back to our guys. They brought a UTV down there. We started unloading the Bibles. And the crew chief said to me, he said, I hate doing this. I hate doing this. He said, I just hate doing this. Listen, can you navigate? And I said, I can. He said, I want you up here. You're going to be crew chief. I'm going to stay behind. So me and the pilot took off. And this time it lifted off. And we headed out and circled. And we went and picked up some of our forward operating base pastors and let them actually see from an aerial view what their situations were. That helicopter, oddly enough, had the word Trump 2024 on the side of it.
Did it?
And we flew all over Asheville. I just wonder if somebody had shot at us, but we flew all over Asheville and even up into Madison doing aerial assessments for our pastors. Again, I had no connection with it whatsoever. It's the one they sent me. So we sat down back on the runway here. We almost ran out of fuel. We were so low of fuel because we flew so much. We were so low of fuel when we got back here. He banked to come in the runway, and when he turned that thing up, the buzzers went off that we were out of fuel. And when he straightened it back up, the buzzer quit, and we set it out on the helipad. It held within like 4 gallons of its capacity. We filled it completely full of fuel, and it held, I think we had 4 gallons of, but when we banked sideways, it actually, I think it burped. It caught air. I was standing there still. They were fueling the helicopter, and I got a phone call from a number that I did not recognize. And I answered it, and she said, this woman said to me, Reverend Barton said, I am with the Trump campaign, and said, I would like to know how long the runway is there. Well, I'm standing on it, oddly enough. How does she know? And how does she know I'm standing with a Trump helicopter, How does she know? And I said, that's 2,800 feet. She said, well, a Learjet come in and out. I said, no, ma'am. I mean, it will, but you shouldn't. It's not rated. You should not do that. And she said, well, Laura Trump is wanting to come. And would you be willing to host Laura at your facility and have a press conference? And I said, certainly we would. I said, but ma'am, I need you to listen to what I'm going to say to you. We don't need Laura, bless her heart. We need Donald J. Trump to come to the mountains. We've had everybody else, but we've not had Donald. I mean, Biden's been here. Kamala's been here. But Donald J. Trump has not been here.
And I'm just saying, they did almost nothing.
Well,
right.
I mean,
well, and she said, to your facility? I said, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. I said, we're not, no. You need to go to ground zero. And she said, well, where's that? I said, Swannanoa.
yeah.
You need the former president, the 45th president of the United States needs to come. And she said, well, what can he do? I said, he can bring the press back. He can bring attention back.
Right.
People have forgotten about us. And I said, we're being mistreated. We're being, the government is telling us we can't even take care of our own. We can't build sheds. We can't do anything. And I said, FEMA is more of a hindrance than a help. Yeah. And I said, the only man alive that can get some attention to that is Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
Right.
She said, Pastor, I hear your passion. I meet with him in the morning. I'll see what we could do.
Right.
The following week, Donald Trump was in Swannanoa.
Yeah.
And he made this statement. He said, we'll be back.
Yep.
Don Jr. was on a UTV with one of our pastors from Yancey County.
Bradley Boone, he'll be here in a little while.
And he rode around all day
in Pensacola.
Rode around all day with Don Jr. And at the end of the day, he turned to Bradley and said, my dad will be the next president, and we will be back. To verify that what happened, in the middle of the night, I watched it. In the acceptance speech, when Donald Trump won by a landslide, in the acceptance speech, he mentioned Western North Carolina and the Starlinks.
Do you think that was off script?
I'm sure it was.
I feel like it was. I feel like that was in his mind, and I can't prove that, but I feel like that was so heavily in his mind that he.
Let me finish and I'm going to circle back. He said it in the acceptance speech. He sent J.D. Vance here. Yep. J.D. Vance was at the Fairview Fire Department. Mm-hmm. In the inaugural speech, he mentioned Western North Carolina. In the inaugural speech. I think the lady that I talked to is now his chief of staff. One of the most powerful women in the world. Mm-hmm. They told Donald Trump the week of his inauguration on Monday, they said, you're going to California with Governor Newsom on Friday as your first official visit as the president. He said, no, ma'am, I'm not. And they said, what do you mean? We've already got it lined up. He said, Newsom will have to wait. He said, I promised the people of Western North Carolina I'd be back. And he said, I'm going to Western North Carolina.
Right.
And he did.
Yep, it's good.
We were the first official visit by the President of the United States. Yeah. Now, I want to double back to what he talked about in the acceptance speech. I have a fireman who was working at a Buncombe County station. There was no communications other than the two-way radios, and that was limited. We lost almost everything. A helicopter landed. My recollection, I didn't see it, but I think they said it was blue. A large helicopter landed at the fire station. A gentleman got out dressed in black. It seems like I remember that he was armed. He came running up with something that looked like a large pizza box. It was gray. And he handed it to the fireman. And he said, what's this? He said, it's a Starlink. And he said, what do I do with it? He said, follow the instructions and it'll get you back online. He said, well, thank you so much. He said, well, don't thank me. He said, well, who do I thank? And the gentleman said, well, and again, this is all from memory. He said, well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but thank Elon Musk for the Starlinks. And by the way, the service is free till the first of the year. Free unit, free Starlink, free everything. And he said, and thank Donald J. Trump for the helicopter. The two of them hatched it up last night on the phone. And in less than 12 hours, they made it happen. Mm-hmm. I know that to be true. Mm-hmm. I can produce witnesses that saw it happen. And it was not a political stunt. Because they wouldn't tell who did it. They didn't want people to know who did it. But it happened. And I know it happened. And those Starlinks changed everything. Because rather than having to go through the infrastructure, and of course the largest internet outage in the history of the internet. Transylvania County was completely down. Everything. We had no communications of any kind. The Starlink allowed us to go to a satellite and get outside the damage and actually bring up. But when that thing come online, Brian, I looked at the television, one I'm watching myself in right now in the newsroom, and they started showing Biltmore, and a rail car turned over, and a fire burning, and ruins and wreck. I had no idea how bad it was. Yeah. I had no idea. And Brother Martin, I broke down on the air and wept because of what I saw, because I thought it was just localized. I had no idea how bad it was beyond us.
You know, they say ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
So I had a real, and I've told this story a couple of times, but I had a real estate agent, a very, very well-off real estate agent in Laurel Park, call me. And she said, is the station you're affiliated with 720? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, me and my husband are in the living room of our house. We're fine. She said, but that's the only thing you can see or hear right now. Yeah. Now, I didn't say that.
Right.
This very well-off real estate agent said that. And I said, okay. I said, yeah, that's the one I'm affiliated with. And she said, it's just so comforting to hear somebody talk. And had you been, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this, but had you been informed on how bad it was, it might have been a little more daunting for you to repeat that information on day 1 or day 2 or day 3.
Yeah.
I think it was the grace of
That,
God.
exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Because 126,000 homes was the final count, sustained damage, and only
We're still fixing them.
private insurance only 12% covered.
What's the math on that?
18,000 farms with only 5 to 10% of federal insurance. This is the whole Southeast. A month in, we still had 82 schools that were closed.
How many is a farm? You said the farms?
There were 18,000 farms damaged from Florida, Georgia, here, and then in Tennessee, 18,000 farms.
And out of all of those homes,
So out of the 126,000 homes, only 15,120 had.
and so you said farms, and I know we got 10 minutes, but Hen's plant farm, I was talking to Brian Hen, and I wish he could be with us today, but he said that the Hooper's Creek was 1,000 feet wide.
Yeah.
Now that's a businessman's assessment.
Right.
A creek
Right.
that was 1,000 feet wide.
Destroyed his business.
So farms, houses, keep going.
Well, we're talking about how bad was it, preacher? It was the Appalachian Apocalypse. It was the worst of all scenarios.
We're not playing around with those words.
No.
The storm came to the mountains. If you're outside the mountains, the western North Carolina is a very unique geological area. We are a part of the Tennessee Valley or the Tennessee River headwaters. The French Broad is one of the headwaters of the Tennessee. If you looked at it on a map that was a raised map, you would think almost that western North Carolina was this giant volcano crater.
Mm-hmm.
We have this high mountain plateau of about 2,000 feet, but there are mountains that go up all the way around. The ones to our east and south, it's called the Eastern Escarpment. The ones to our west, it's called, to our north, it's the Black Mountains. To the west, it's the Smokies. But our rivers here cut through and go down into Tennessee. So we're in this large bowl. And the only way for the water to get out is to go through Asheville. All the water. And normally, all the water, it starts here. There's no water that comes here. It starts here. We are literally the headwaters. And when you have almost 3 feet of rain fall inside this bowl, that storm got here and stalled. You were showing it a moment ago. You were showing up on my screen. Nobody else can see it, but you were showing
It's on Facebook.
Okay,
You can see
the
it.
radar loop. That storm got on top of us and churned and churned.
After the
and
first
churned.
one had already sit here for 2 days, that this top storm had already rained on us for 2 days.
And so, if you can imagine this, the mountains that you cross coming up, you come up into the mountains at Flat Rock, Sugarloaf Mountain, Edneyville, all those mountains out through there, and then that turns into Fairview, and then up to the Black Mountains. This thing got against there, and these waves of rain and these bands of this hurricane beat against the side of those mountains.
Right.
Relentlessly, like being inside of a washing machine. To the west, the further west you go, the better it was. Toxaway got almost nothing. This end got quite a bit. Thankfully, Transylvania had no loss of life. But we had a number of homes that were damaged or completely destroyed. And when you get to Henderson County, loss of life, Buncombe County, it gets worse. I mean, it just, as you go through, it gets worse.
Well, the Lord was merciful to us.
He was here.
So we could have a hub here.
Well, it's the first time we've ever operated a disaster out inside the zone.
Yeah.
Typically, when we go to do a disaster, we've been working disaster since 1989. We pick a place that has electricity and utilities, and that becomes our hub, and then we take things into the storm. We take things into the damaged area. We were ground zero here. And as God would have it, we had a warehouse, we had everything. And I will tell it a little later in the day, but because you and others were outside and you knew what we needed and you knew what our, what we had to have. The moment the roads opened, Anchor started receiving tractor trailers to the point we couldn't even get them unloaded. There was a point there were 4 tractor trailers waiting to turn in, 2 on New 64, 2 on Old 64, completely shut down both highways, and they couldn't get on the property because of all the other trucks. That happened. The Highway Patrol came and said, we got to do something. I said, I'm listening.
Well, Daniel Nicholson, Daniel and Kim had just given me the credentials for the Anchor Broadcasting Facebook. I just had the credentials, the new credentials, and we were doing these very, very primitive selfie-style live videos from outside the zone, letting everybody know what was needed inside the zone, and it's almost traumatic how there was no way for us to recount every. Now I've got details of everybody that called and said, "Hey, I'm bringing XYZ." Right. I've got that. I got all that. But the ones that just showed up, tens of millions. I'm not exaggerating. Tens of millions of dollars worth of things came through here.
Came through the mountains, no doubt. One of the things that was different for us, normally we would feed the community. But when I mentioned to emergency management, what do you need? He immediately said, shelter support. We did not realize, Brother Coates, we did not realize, Brother Martin, that we were going to have people in shelters for over a month.
Yes, right, on the floor.
And Anchor fed 3 meals a day. Yep. And then that expanded. And we were feeding over 300 people. This is swiftwater teams, firemen, policemen, power crews. We had power crews that were sleeping in their trucks because they had no place to stay, that came here and stayed with us, washed their clothes and got a shower. The problem is the 10 acres that we have here was so full I couldn't get a parking place. And that's the truth.
Right.
We have aerial footage that will prove that's not when it was at its peak, but I can show you how bad it was here. And so we were several days before we could begin to help the community. And I regret that. But it's all we had. But in helping all the people serving the community, we were helping the community.
In 12 weeks, I've read it to you before, 8,000 days worth of groceries distributed to 32,000 people, all paid for by the people of God. None of it was government.
Right.
None of that was. The kitchens at Anchor produced well, and this is the best number I can come up with. This is a little bitty number, but it's at least 14,000 hot meals in 6 weeks, just in 6 weeks.
Brother, we produced 1,000 on a Thursday. Yeah. 1,000 on one Thursday.
I remember that.
And then everybody sent the volunteers to us. When we did open to the public, the lines were so long to get water, to get food. We had people coming from Asheville here because they heard we had free water and free ice and free food.
Right.
We had people coming from everywhere they could get to us. The lines, they'd sit in lines for some of them set for 3 hours just to get whatever we could give them. We had everybody from a Navy admiral to a surgeon putting food in boxes and loading it in the backs of cars.
Right.
We had college football teams and basketball teams, and we had the girls' soccer teams, and we had come in here in force.
Yep.
And it's the first time I've actually been able to talk about it. Because after 62 days, I suffered an emotional breakdown. And Brian, I had to hand it to you because I was not capable of taking it any further. And the book that we threatened to write on day one still hasn't been written.
We're working on it.
Because I've not been able to face it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to do the prep for this, for today. I didn't want to do it. And my doctor came here.
Yeah, he did.
Took me off the air. Put me to bed. And counseled me. And, Brother Coach, you're in trouble when someone comes to you weeping that they've lost everything. And you begin to weep with them. But you can't stop. they stop weeping and start asking for help, but you can't stop weeping.
Yeah.
We were blessed personally. Our church families were blessed. But the scripture says, bear ye one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And that's what we sought to do. But the burdens became so heavy and the fatigue so great. I had just come from Duke, just like I did yesterday. I just drove in from Duke Lit yesterday. A year ago this week, I was at Duke having the tubes removed from radical cancer surgery. I came home on Wednesday. The storm hit Friday. And for 62 days, we stayed here. And God in mercy did the most amazing things of my life.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It was one of the greatest times of my life.
Stirs my soul.
But it was also one of the worst times that I've ever
Both.
lived.
Both.
One of the worst times that I've ever lived.
Yeah.
You've quoted it so many years since I was a teenager. Lord, in wrath, remember mercy.
Yeah.
Bottom of the hour,
And he
we'll be
did.
back. We'll be back.
We got
9:30.
bright spot hour, but 9:30 we will.
Brother
be back
Martin,
on.
will you pray for us?
Yes, sir, I will. Father, we thank you for your goodness and for your mercy. Lord, we certainly don't deserve the mercy of God, but Lord, as we were talking about, we've seen it a year ago. Lord, in wrath, we did see your mercy, and we're so grateful for that. Lord, I pray that you'd continue in mercy, that you'd continue to be long-suffering to us, Lord, that we may bring more souls to Christ on your behalf and for your glory. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity today to remember what happened a year ago, and I pray that you'd help us to remember it correctly and appropriately and honor the memory of those whose lives were lost. Well, thank you for it, Lord. I pray that we would bring honor and glory to you in all that's said and done today.